16 is a classic chapter, and we've already discussed some of the events in other chapters because they're supportive. This is Matthew's attempt when he went up to Caesarea Philippi, and Jesus asked him, "Who do you say that I am?" John puts that a little earlier in his gospel, and Luke, of course, stretches it out for like 2 chapters in his gospel. So same event, but it's all placed in certain places. So this is Matthew's attempt to cover that situation. All right? 16, and the Pharisees and the Sadducees came up to Jesus and began to test him, and he asked them to show them a sign from heaven. But Jesus answered and said to them, "When it is evening, you say it will be fair weather because the sky is red. And in the morning, there will be a storm today because the sky is red, and it threatens us. Do you know how to discern the appearance of the sky, but cannot discern the signs of the time? It is an evil and adulterous generation that seeks a sign, and a sign will not be given, except the sign of Jonah." And he left them and went away. And the disciples came to the other side and had forgotten to take with them some bread. And Jesus said to them, "Watch out and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees." And the disciples began to discuss amongst themselves, saying, "It is because we took no bread, isn't it?" And Jesus, being aware of this, said, "You men of little faith, why do you discuss amongst yourselves that you have no bread?" What was that?
Her phone.
I'm going to hit you with something. I'm going to go borrow Shirley's praise stick. You men of little faith, because you discussing this because you have no bread. Do you not yet understand and remember the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and how many large baskets you picked up? Or the 7 loaves of the 4,000, and again how many baskets you took up? How is it that you do not understand that I did not speak to you concerning bread? I said, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And then they understood that he did not say to beware of the leaven in bread, but of the teaching of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, not the brightest bulbs in the lamp. Now then, when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he began asking his disciples questions, saying, "Who do the people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some believe John the Baptist, others believe Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the other prophets." And he said to them directly, "But who do you say I am?" And Simon Peter answered and said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered and said to him, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, because flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I shall build my church, and the gates of Hades shall never overpower it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you shall loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven." And he warned the disciples that they should tell no one that he was the Christ. Now from that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must also go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders and the chief priests and the scribes, even to be killed, but he would raise up on the 3rd day. And Peter took him aside and rebuked Jesus, saying, "God forbid this, Lord. It shall never happen to you." And he turned to Peter and rebuked him, saying, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are a stumbling block to me. For you are not setting your mind on God's interests, but on your own." Then Jesus said to his disciples, "If anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life shall lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake shall find it. For what will a man be profited if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come again in glory of his Father with his angels, and then recompense every man according to his deeds. For truly, truly, I say to you that there are some standing here, even now, who shall not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming into his kingdom. Okay, what do you think about that? What do you think the overarching thing is here? Let me get some markers here. I don't know if these still work or not. Good coffee. What do you think the overarching emphasis is in this passage?
Don't follow signs of the world. Listen to me.
Think bigger.
Think bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Trusting him.
Well, let me help you out and then we'll go on from there because it'll be easier. Think in terms of God has, or Jesus has, a mission. He is here, has come to this planet, has come to this existence, to a group of creatures called humans with a purpose. Okay? Now, if you keep it general, U-R-P-O-S-E, with a purpose. What is that purpose? Well, first and foremost is that there is a God, and He alone is God. There aren't any other gods. Remember the Ten Commandments? What was the first thing that came out of the Lord's mouth? I am the Lord thy God. There is no other gods. Just me. And if you make any more gods and put them before me, we're going to have a bad weekend. Remember that? You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. I am not someone to be trifled with. And I sure as heaven don't want to hear whatever. You say that to me? Remember that? All these little things he said about himself. You will not take my name in vain. Remember the Sabbath. Keep it holy. Why? Because I am holy. I want you to be like me. Because I am God. There aren't any others. Just me. First of the Big Ten, right there. All three of them pertain to His existence, His being. And He's also demanding, His purpose demands, E-N-A-D-S, demands what? First and foremost, obedience. And participation. C-I-P-A-T-I-O-N. Plan ahead. His purpose demands us, U.S., demands our obedience and our participation. In other words, God doesn't want to be an option. He'll give you that option to walk away, but then again, you're going to be held accountable to that consequence. He demands obedience and He demands participation. Well, what does this imply? There's a hymn written after it. We are able. By the way, I'm preaching on this today. We are able. It would be ridiculous for me to say, Benny Land, if you don't lift this weight bar of 7,000 pounds, you're fired.
I'm fired.
She's fired. And Jesus makes that point. It would be ridiculous for me to ask you to do something that you'll never be able to do. But God's not asking you to do anything. In fact, He says, my strength will be with you. You'll be amazed at what you can do with me on your side. In fact, nothing will become impossible for you if you and I are walking together hand in hand, leg in leg, step in step in step. You don't even have to fear death. I've overcome that too. In the twinkle of an eye, you will be in a new kingdom that you can't even imagine. On your wildest dreams, you can't imagine. And the revelation that John saw, just the tip of the iceberg. But up until that time, nobody else had seen it. See what I'm saying? So this chapter talks about the mission of Christ. Everybody's wanting to know, is it Him? Is this the Son of God? Is this Messiah? Is this the fulfillment of every promise we've heard about since Genesis 1? And He said, I am. And everybody has to come to this understanding on his own. Now Peter gets lucky and he blurts out, who do the people say I am? Oh, they think you're Elijah, come back from the dead. Oh, they think you're John the Baptist, that got his head cut off and now you've come to replace him. Oh, they think you're this prophet or that prophet. Who do you say I am? This is where it goes from theological to personal. Who do you say I am? You are the 12 monkeys that have been walking with me for 3 years. I've shown you everything. Remember the loaves and the fishes? How is it you guys are talking about bread? We got no bread. That's not what I'm talking about. You saw the 4,000 fed. You saw the 5,000 fed. How many more times do we got to do that? You know, before you'll believe, hey, this guy's like really good. Who do you say I am? And Peter jumps up, you're the Son of God. And Jesus acknowledges that and says, you know what, Peter? You're right, and I believe it's because the Father told you. Jesus has told him 15 times. Jesus has showed him 25 times. I and the Father are one, but somehow this group of Rhodes scholars are not understanding it. Even to the Last Supper, when Peter says, show us the Father, it'll be enough. Really? Really? So Peter immediately says, I got the answer. You know, he hits the buzzer first and tells them, you're the Son of the living God. And Jesus acknowledges that and says, well, you know it because God told you. And you know what? We're going to build our church upon this. And the gates of hell itself will not prevail against it. And Peter, you're going to be, and he assumed this is great. I am great. I got the right answer, and now I'm getting to be the boss. That's not what Jesus meant at all. And immediately Peter takes Jesus and says, you know, if you're going to go to Jerusalem and get killed, I can figure this out. Let's not go to Jerusalem. And immediately Jesus says, but that would stop my mission, wouldn't it? You've got your eyes back on yourself, Mr. I am brave, even to the point of death. That would be his final commission at the Last Supper. I'll follow you even unto death. No, you won't. You know, the next day will rise. The cock will crow 3 times before, or you'll deny me 3 times before the morning rooster sets the alarm. I'm on a mission, boys. There's only one purpose for your very existence. And that is to acknowledge the God who is your Father, Creator, and now your Redeemer. And I'm here to save you literally from yourselves. Literally. With my own blood, my own body, the whole communion thing. which they hadn't had a clue about. I'm here to save you from myself. And if we don't go to Jerusalem, what would that imply?
It's not him.
That this mission has been abandoned. This is the very purpose for which I was born. Through the tiny little Mary. Through the broken little Joseph, who even now is no longer with us. He's fallen into the earth and he is passed on. If I'm the Son of God, how dare I would forgive or forget or push aside the very purpose for my coming. Now, translate this over to the last garden scene where Jesus said, Lord, if there's any way out of this, I'm open to option. And for the first time, God didn't open the heavens and speak down, this is my Son in whom I'm well pleased. He didn't rain down or send angels to help him. He was deafeningly silent. Basically saying back to Jesus, who are you? That you would ask me to abandon the purpose for which you were created. And Jesus came to the reckoning that day of his presence on earth. And he said, Lord, your will be done, not mine. That didn't mean he was less human. That just meant he was fully aware that he is. Did he feel the pain? Some people said, well, God didn't let him feel the pain. Come on. Can't beat a man up like that and have him not feel the pain. I mean, they did kill him in this existential understanding. I am. So Jesus got the same question Peter did. Who are you? But this time Jesus had to say, I am the Son of the living God. It was for this purpose I was sent and made to come to this point. Let your will, not mine, be done. And with that, the soldiers showed up and grabbed him up, and the death parade began. Talk about a Memorial Day, huh? And everybody got to witness it. Even Peter, who said, you are the living God, and I will walk with you no matter what. No, he didn't. He fell victim to the world, to the fear, to the threat, to the worry. He saw the spectacle. Jesus beaten, crown of thorns brought out before the people, bleeding. He saw him on the cross getting hammered in, and he ran away. The man upon whom Jesus was going to build his church. It was John who went and stayed, and they, John, you're going to get caught, you're going to get killed. I'm not going to let Jesus die alone. He was the one brave enough that said, I don't care what happens to me. If nothing else, if my life ends tonight, I want to be found obedient. I want to be found where I'm supposed to be. Am I scared? Oh, heck yes, he was scared. The three ladies, were they scared? I'm sure they were. Maybe Mary wasn't. But the only reason she wasn't scared is because she had too much pain watching her child die in a most horrific way. She didn't have time to be scared. She had to be mom. That was a bigger job at that point, you see. That was bigger than who do the people say I am. Well, Mary answered that question. I am mom. That's the only one that wasn't scared, in my opinion. Because she had a bigger job to do. And Jesus acknowledged that. He said, Mother, behold your son. The disciple that Jesus cared and loved the most. And he said, Son, behold your mother. You'll never go wrong standing by her side. And with that, he died. He cried out his last, and then passed away. And it was over. Mission accomplished. Now, what's the world going to do with this? There's the question. The Pharisees said, "Give us a sign." And he answered, "No sign will be given you except the sign of Jonah." Some say Noah. Either one, they were both signs of God's mission to save his people. The people were eating and drinking in the days of Noah. They were being given in marriage and having celebrations, and they were all about themselves and the world right up to the day the door of the ark was shut. And then all life, we're told 3 times in one verse, all life outside the ark perished. Everything died, including all those little wiggly creatures called humans. They couldn't get to the ark. Noah couldn't open that door if he wanted to. That door was enormous. God's hand shut that ark. I know TV does it other ways, but there was no TV back then. It was God and a guy named Noah and his 3 sons, Mo, Larry, and Curly, that built that ship. That's why it was crooked a little bit. Whoa, look. Hey, Mo. Hey, Larry. This board's bent. Shut up, you meathead. Okay, enough of the 3 Stooges. Same thing with Jonah. Jonah, I want you to go tell these people I'm tired of them. Now, you got to remember, Jonah didn't want to do that either. So he ran away to a very special resort. It was a weekend in a whale. That must have opened his eyes a little bit, if he still had eyes left that weren't half digested. I've never spent a week in a fish, or a weekend, and the fish had vomited him up on the shore. You know, that just says Perkins all over it. Oh, Applebee's. Whoa. I felt bad for the fish when I first read that story. I used to have a cartoon with 2 whales. What did you eat? God told me to eat it. Yeah, right, God told you to eat him. They were arguing about their diets. 2 whales trying to lose weight. What did you eat? I ate Jonah. Anyway, after convincing Jonah that there's a mission he was participating in, and he finally understood that it would be best for his sake if he participated and did what God asked him to do, and it was to go to the people who, by the way, were not Jews, and give them the same opportunity to turn their lives around. These were the Assyrians. A-N-S. And he went to Nineveh, and he walked 1 of 3 days across the city. That's how they used to measure cities. You would start here and walk to here, and that's how big and populated that was. And we are told that Nineveh at that time, the kingdom of the Assyrians, was a 3-day walk. The guy walked for 24 hours 3 times. I don't know how much that is. 72 hours? Something like that. A bunch of hours. If God walked it, he walked 1 day, saying, repent, get on board with God, be obedient, or this place is going to be a parking lot. Guarantee. Well, the king decreed that all the people should repent. The king decreed that all the people should be in sackcloth and ashes, as was the Jewish way of handling things before the Lord. And he ordered that all the animals be put in sackcloth and ashes. and anything that was alive and breathing to be put in sackcloth and ashes, and to bow down, kneel down, and pray and ask God to spare them. The whole people of the Assyrian Empire acknowledged this God and decided to participate in obedience to this God. Same thing Jesus was trying to get his people to do. And they didn't. Instead, they said, give us a sign. No sign will be given you except Noah, where the whole world was lost, and Jonah, where a whole nation, not Jewish, would be saved. Wow. Faced with those two issues, a whole world lost, a whole nation not Jews. In fact, the Assyrians would eventually, in 40, 50, 60 years later, they would come against the 10 northern kingdoms and destroy them. God would use the Assyrians to destroy the Jezebels and Ahab and all that stuff. Get it? That's the book of Nahum, by the way, if you want to read that. Jonah went and saved them. Nahum came back and said, boy, did you guys screw up. God gave you an opportunity, and now what are you doing? You would lift your hand above God. Worse than that, they even called God his names. They talked bad about God's mom. And they sent a letter to Uzziah and said, your God wears army boots. And he took it into the temple, and that's when the Lord said, go up on the walls and dance and drink and eat all night long. Just have the biggest party the world has ever seen. In the morning, 187,000 Assyrians lay dead in their tents. This same people that obeyed, participated, and acknowledged God, and then destroyed the 10 northern tribes, and thought, we can do more. Let's go down and get Jerusalem. That's the real prize. God didn't protect these people. Let's go hit Jerusalem. That's where all the gold is, the money, and the good food. Not the little prepackaged jobs we got up here in the north. And they did that, and the Lord didn't allow them to do that. And they got up there and they mocked God. Well, the implication there is that this promise, as well as it is, this mission, as fabulous as it is, can be acknowledged and participated in, but it can also be lost. You know, I like the way Paul says it in the Hebrews and in the Romans. If we neglect so great of salvation, how can anyone be saved? If we neglect so great a salvation, such an effort, such a wow! Who or what is going to take care of ourselves then? I don't think a lot of people think like that when they say, oh, that God stuff. Wow, that God stuff. Think of the stupidity of that statement just for a minute. Think about it for a minute and think to yourself, how can one little tiny creature contain and hold on to that much stupidity? Given the fact that all of this has happened since the beginning of our planet. How is it you're talking about bread, Katie? For crying out loud. We got no bread. I'm telling you to beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. The false teaching, the idiots. Who already are lost. They want a sign. They can't even see for themselves how far away from this mission they are. Only one, Nicodemus, came to Jesus at night, remember, in the garden? And he said, I know you got to be from God because you couldn't do this stuff. I've been a priest for 78 years and I can't do that stuff. I can't even boil a hot dog. And even Jesus questioned him. He says, Nicodemus, how can you be as old as you are and as practiced as you are and a priest for 78 years and you can't see what's standing right in front of you? You can't understand the effort that God has gone through, why he's gone through it, and how he's backed it up, even with a promise and a provision to redeem, to make straight that which was crooked. By the way, you're part of the crooked, not part of the straight. Not yet. Neither was Peter. You are the Son of the living God. Well, I've got to go to Jerusalem and finish this mission. If they're going to kill you like you say, let's just not go to Jerusalem. Well, what's going to happen to all these people that I was sent to redeem? Now, look at the power of that last night in the Garden of Gethsemane. Lord, if there's any other way, I'm open to provision. And the deafening silence of the Lord prevailed. And Jesus had to answer his own question. Who does the world say I am? You are the one that's got to finish this mission, or everything is lost. There will be no hope. That's what he came to. Is there any question? He was sweating like drops of blood. He was a little nervous. I'm just sweating sweat because it's hot in this room forever.
Hair's blowing on your head.
I know it. But he came to himself in that moment. Who do I say I am? I am the Son of the living God, and there isn't a soul on this earth who will survive if I don't finish this mission. Your will, Father, not mine. That was the answer. If God said anything, it was probably, I love it when a good plan comes together. The George Papard thing. I love it when a good plan comes together. And of course, the soldiers were right there on top of him. He was arrested and the persecution began. And the last thing he said is, it is finished. I can go home now. What's finished? Everything dealing with these creatures called humans is finished. Promises made, prophets proclaimed, provision sent, contract signed. It is finished. So the question bears on to us now. Who do you say he is? Only you can answer that. And they're up at Caesarea Philippi. I drew the temple there once before, the headwaters of the Jordan River with the little alcoves and all the gods were in them. Remember that? And Caesar was in the middle of it. I'm not going to do that again, but you've seen it before. Well, that's where they are now in Matthew. Matthew's emphasizing that everybody can be a part of this promise. Everybody. Just like in the days of Noah, the whole world was lost, or in the days of the Assyrians, the enemies of the Jews, and yet God spared them for a time. Till they, like Peter, slipped back into the world and said, oh, we can do what we want. They can't stop us. God can't stop us. Peter did a little more discreetly. He said, oh, Jerusalem is bad. Let's just not go. Get behind me, Satan. Anybody that's against this mission and its purpose and its obedience and its participation is of the enemy. Period. Of the enemy. And as grand as this promise is, as beautiful as it is, as the centuries it's been foretold, it can be lost. And Paul said, oh God, dear God, how? anyone be saved if such salvation as this is neglected? How? It suddenly dawned on Paul. He was the Pharisee. He was the leaven. He was not a part of it, but he would become a part of it. That was his turning point in his own conversion. We all have to answer that question. Who do you say he is? In your own heart and your own soul. And don't try and justify nothing, because you never had anything to do with it to begin with. God has privileged you 3 things. A, to know it, to understand it. B, to decide whether it's going to be important in your life or not. And C, if it is, make it important. Participate in it. If not, go ahead, say it, whatever, and go do your own thing. That's chapter 16. Not very important, really. It's just one of a bunch of them. I jest. That's all I got, folks. Go away. You're still here.